Hello, I'm Mr. Lopez and I'm gonna show you a few tips to try to make your photo shoots a bit more interesting depending on the equipment that you're using. I'm gonna be using an iPhone, so I'm gonna show you some techniques that you can use with the iPhone to make your photos a bit more interesting. So, you were asked to do several photo shoots during the day using the same objects, and you might be thinking, okay, how am I supposed to do this look interesting? It's the same object, it's just taking a bunch of pictures. How can I make more pictures and make them look different? The first thing is just try different angles. So when you're taking your photos, try taking them from straight forward, try moving your camera above, try moving them below. Try to think if there's any way that you can maybe show like what's happening behind the scenes. Try to move yourself with your camera, with your phone around to try to communicate more things. Maybe not just the object, but everything else that's happening around. Then with your phone, remember that if you click on an object in your phone and then you slide your finger up or down, it's gonna change the brightness. This in another camera will be called the ISO. In here, I don't know how it's called in here, but it's exactly the same thing. You're changing the exposure of the picture. So just click on the object that you want to focus and then slide it up and down and try to take different photos because remember, you're just experimenting with your camera and your equipment, so try to see what it does, try to see the difference that it makes with your objects and with your photos. Now, the camera in your phone has a zoom, so you can move closer to the objects. When you do this, what it does, it creates some noise. So have a look at the different images in here, and you can see how when the image is really close, it's a bit blurry, it's a bit fuzzy, in comparison to one that I haven't used the zoom, and you can see how the colors are much neater and how everything's a bit sharper. Yeah, so remember, when you're using the zoom in a phone, what it does is it expands the pixels, so you start to lose some focus on the image. So if you can avoid using the zoom, please try to avoid it. I would suggest move closer to your object. Your cameras will work really good. So I have a few examples in here as well on how a macro take would look with your phone. So you can move your camera really close and you can start to see details that like they're really small, and it changes the way of your photos. It gives another perspective of your photo shoot. So consider that as well, taking really close-ups, moving farther away. Where are you standing in regards to your object? Also remember that you've been working with different types of compositions. One of them is to work using the rule of thirds. Now, your phone, your camera, most of the devices now have the grid there. So remember where you're placing your objects. Think where are you putting everything? Is there anything in the guides? Do you have enough space on one side? Do you have more on the other? Do you need to balance things out? Is it making the viewer look at something or wonder about something else? So start considering your composition, rule of thirds, guidelines, all of these things that we've spoken before, you've talked about before. Remember that if you want to do things like blurring images or freezing images with your mobile, it can be a bit trickier, but you have a multi-photo option by just keep pressing the photo button and it will take a lot of photos one after another. So if you want to create some effect, sometimes it's useful just to try this and see what the outcomes are, see the different takes that you did by swiping your phone around. If you want to experiment with filters, normally the cameras, you put a lens on top of them. In your phone you will have different filters that allow you to create different effects. You can create effects of different lights, of different color tones. You can have monochromatic. There's a lot of different things depending on your phone, so play around with them, take some photos. Remember, you're just experimenting with this at the moment, so just play around and see what results you get. Try to understand your equipment. I would suggest, just for this exercise, while you're trying things, try to move some of your photos into other apps as well. I like Instagram a lot because I think it's really easy to use, and it has things like you can change the focus on an object, and it's really easy to blur everything around. Now the problem with this is that when you move a photo to a different app, the quality of the photo changes, so you wouldn't be able to use this later on for your finals or for more professional work, but you can always try to use them just to play around, and then the same effects we can do them in other editing tools or other software. When you move to a different time of the day, so you're taking photos now at night, think what is the like why are you taking photos at night? It's not just to try to take the same object without light. So how can you make the best out of it? Consider the environment. If you can see other windows outside, maybe it's worth showing those windows and making a like a mysterious effect with your objects. Again, try to play with the filters. If it's too dark, maybe some other filters in your phone will help you show more definition in your objects. So have a look at that. Try to play with different lights. So turn maybe just first do some without light. Try some with flash. Try some with the normal like the light in your room. Try to use a torch and shine it on the objects to create a very more dramatic effect. So try to make the best of that situation. You wouldn't be taking photos at night for a catalog. You will be taking photos at night if you're trying to create a mood, like a more mysterious or more dark mood. So think about that. Try to make your objects feel that way. When you're taking photos at another time of the day, so if you use the golden hour, you use photos at night, and then you're using a different time, you're maybe in the morning or in the middle of the day, and maybe you're thinking they look really similar, so how else can you make them look different? Try to remember other techniques that we've spoken about. Try to think of framing, try to think of changing the focus of your object. Now, if you want to change the focus, if you want something farther behind to be in the thing in focus rather than the thing in front, in your phone you just tap on whatever you want to be the focus, and then it will move that focus on your camera. You can do the same. Maybe you want your object to be blurred, so click on something that's closer to you. Try to play around, try to take a couple of photos from the object in focus and without being in focus. There's other techniques in your phone depending on what you have. The iPhone has a panoramic picture, so try to play around with that too. Try to see what happens if you take a photo of the whole environment. You can do them horizontally or you can do them up as well, so maybe you want one from the grass to the sky. Yeah, remember, if you click on the arrow it will change the direction, so it's easier for you depending on what you're photographing. There are other settings like portrait. Now, if you're not using a portrait, I did a couple of examples thinking, okay, so how can you incorporate some portrait into your photos? Maybe you're part of your subject matter now. Maybe it's all the subjects and you, so you can use the portrait filter. Now, if you try to use that filter in some object, it won't work. It only recognizes faces. Depending on your software, you might have a phone that recognizes everything, but try to play with the things that you have in your phone. If you get like you took all the pictures, you can't see anything else, everything, you've taken them all, you have no more clue, change the filter. Take some photos in monochromatic. Try to do the same thing but in black and white, and try to see, okay, it's not just doing it because you want to do it. So try to experiment with black and white. It's all about shapes, it's all about contrast, so you lose the color object. So if you had everything that was really bright, it's not bright anymore because it's not red or it's not whatever color it was. So now you need to make it the focus with something else, with the shapes around it, with maybe some contrast with the objects. So challenge yourself, try to experiment with different things, try maybe doing the same photos but using different techniques. My suggestion is take the same photo in a lot of different styles. So if you're using the golden hour, take a photo of the object from the front, and then at night the same photo, and then in the middle of the day the same photo, and then one more with black and white, the same photo, and then you can actually put them all together and compare how they look and how and you're gonna start to see how different they are and how the light affects them and how you get different moods depending on all the filters and all the settings that you have. And that's it. I hope this was useful. Have fun, take as many photos as you can, and enjoy